Yeah. So you can have them on the playground with you. So you stretch and draw your circle even bigger than it's been. And let a few more people know they're welcome to come in. In the circles all around us, everywhere we all go, there's a difference we can make and a love we can all show. Those different words for hello. Yet there are still so many outside the circle who are different in all they do, though it feels slightly uncomfortable. It doesn't mean the circle is easy. It can get harder the more we share. But wonderful things can happen when love is known and felt everywhere. They have donuts over on this side. I'd like them in my circle. As time passes, our eyes open, we see others we really care for, and that's when we ask ourselves, well, what's this circle really there for? So let's create bigger circles all around us for the rest of our days. Let our caring ripple out in a million little ways. In the circles all around us, everywhere that we all go, there's a difference we can make and a love we can all show. As our circles grow and grow and we watch them wonder-eyed, remember the first circle started with just a little love you hold inside.
May your hearts know and your hands do justice as you go your ways. As you go your way with peace. As you go your way in peace.
Please join me in the spirit of contemplation in whatever way feels right with these words from Teresa I Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know that the way of the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of our right action, and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Blessed be. light of our chalice would soon flicker and die without the oil that nourishes its flame, and just as this flame cannot burn without oil, this religious community cannot survive or thrive without the financial as well as the personal support of its members and friends. The oil that keeps the flame of our religious faith alive and fuels the shared mission and ministry of this fellowship. Let us now give freely and generously an offering to sustain and strengthen our shared religious community, a community of memory, hope, faith, and love. For we are now the keepers of the flame that burns for justice, its dream of beloved community, its vision of a world made whole. To make a donation online via PayPal, please visit auuf.org/donate. Please indicate in the notes whether your donation is for the pledge, your pledge, or the offering. If you're writing a check, please make your check payable to AUUF with a note on the memo line about whether it is for the offering or your pledge, and drop it in the offering bowl or mail it to P.O. Box 669, Auburn, Alabama 36831. If this is your first time with us, please allow the offering basket to pass you by. Your presence with us is gift enough. The offering will now be gratefully received.
I'm not sure we can match the eloquence of the prelude, but this was written by a former choir director of mine, and it's based on reading 473 in our books.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is our Lord. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is our Lord. Love is the spirit, love is the spirit, love is truth, love is the spirit,
A reading from Lawrence Boat. We can learn much about Israel's covenant with the Lord Yahweh by comparing Old Testament descriptions with actual examples of covenants with ancient nations. Ancient treaties show two major types. One is a treaty between equal kings. This is generally called a parity treaty. We possess an excellent example of this kind of covenant in the peace treaty between King Ramses I of Egypt and the Hittite king Hasselusus to end their war in Syria about 1290 BC. The second type is the vassal treaty made between an overlord, a major power, and the small nations that were either conquered by him or were forced to cooperate lest he take them over. The two types of treaty differ in the kinds of obligations that the parties take on. In the parity treaty, each side agrees to mutual responsibilities because they have equal status and neither can force the other to carry out their obligations. But in the vassal treaty, the overlord usually does not bind himself to any particular duties beyond being kindly and protective of the vassal. But he does spell out a series of demands for the vassal to faithfully perform. The second type is the more helpful in interpreting the Sinai covenant between Yahweh, the divine overlord, with Israel, and Israel, the mere creatures whom he has chosen.
Because it is relevant, I can't resist prefacing my remarks by noting the fact that you have a first edition of the UU hymnal as your pulpit hymnal. And the reason I know that is that if you look at the principles and sources inside the front cover, you'll see that our sixth source, the spiritual teachings of our earth-centered traditions, may not be in the copy you have. That may not be a first edition, but this is. The sixth source is not in it. And the reason the sixth source is not in it is that it wasn't approved until after the first edition was published. And the reason I mention that is I can't think of a better example of who we are as a religious tradition. To paraphrase Thomas Starr King, we don't stand, we evolve. So, what is covenantal theology and why should we care? Unitarian Universalism has a somewhat unique place in America's religious landscape. We are, of course, a liberal tradition, but that's not what makes us unique. Every major religious tradition has liberal branches. In fact, for starters, it might be worth taking a look at what makes a liberal religious tradition different from a conservative one. Very briefly, the more conservative a religion is, the more it concentrates on human worthlessness, the power of authority, and the afterlife. You are not worthy of salvation on your own to avoid eternal punishment. You have to believe and behave in certain prescribed ways, period. Liberal religion emphasizes human worthiness and ethical relationship in the here and now. So, worthlessness, authority in the afterlife on one extreme,